Ah yes, Danganronpa. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this game, have seen it, or at the very least heard of it. After all, it's pretty much everywhere, from fan art to cosplay to AMVs to even those questionable pieces of media. However, I'm also sure quite a lot of you haven't actually played it. As I mentioned once before, visual novels are a pretty niche genre that not a lot of people are able to get into. Now, obviously, I'm not calling Danganronpa niche or obscure. I'm well aware of its popularity, but what I'm trying to say here is, from the people I know, not a lot have actually touched the game. Maybe you guys have just watched a Danganronpa anime, or maybe you're just watching a YouTube video much like this one. But today, I'm here to talk about the source material. And mark my words, I will make you play this game, and I will make you feel the sweet despair that comes with it. So in today's video, just to clear some things up, I'll only be going over the main 3 entries in the series: Trigger Happy Havoc, Goodbye Despair, and Killing Harmony. I will not be going over the spin-offs and the anime adaptation, though I'm well aware the anime contains the ending to the main storyline, but that's not important right now. I'll be keeping the script pretty much spoiler-free for you all, however I will be showcasing some of the game's CGs and scenes. So if you want to go in completely blind, I suggest just playing the game yourself right now. I won't be talking about the game's story and plot progression, since I want to leave you guys to experience that for yourself. Rather, I'm just gonna be talking about what makes playing these games worth your time, and what they have in store for you. These games aren't short at all, and for someone unfamiliar with visual novels, playing them for 30 hours may seem like a lifetime. Today though, I want to show that those 30 hours you'll spend on each game may be perfectly worth your time, and show that you might just end up falling deeper in the visual novel rabbit hole after this. Anyway, I think I've talked long enough by now, so without any further ado, let's get into the meat of things. For those of you who somehow don't know, Danganronpa is about a bunch of high school students who get trapped in a killing game. Basically, a robot teddy bear forces them to brutally murder each other. How fun. There is a twist however, that being you have to be able to get away with said murder. After anyone gets killed, a trial is held where people try to figure out who the culprit is. Guess right, the culprit gets executed in absolutely glorious fashion. Guess wrong, and everyone but the culprit goes bye-bye. This is basically just the formula for the whole series, and it doesn't really diverge from this. Obviously, the game isn't afraid to pull punches when killing off characters, so if you're one to get attached to fictional anime girls, then this will be hard to get through. Characters die a lot, and I'll tell you right now, they don't come back. When I first played through this, there was an unrivaled feeling of dread that was looming over me, knowing another character I grew so attached to is about to bite the dust. However, I find you actually do get used to this over the course of the series. Despite the constant death and overall dark concept of the game, it's actually surprisingly goofy at times. The game really doesn't take itself very seriously, and it's pretty light-hearted more often than not. It's filled to the brim with funny character interactions and dialogue, even during its most important segments like the trial.
Come, dumpster! Someone finally called me a cum dumpster!
God damn me, you're gonna get me demonetized. There's constant references to not only otaku culture but also pop culture, so you don't even need to be super into weeb stuff to get a lot of the jokes they pull. Because of this, I wouldn't even say any of the games are for the faint of heart. Obviously, there are some really messed up moments and some hard to look at scenes, but those are pretty few and far between, and they're mostly just there for shock value. And of course, with the exception of 2.5, which I'm sure those who play this game know exactly what I'm talking about. Overall, I'd honestly describe the game as pretty light and easy to take in. The plot is very simple, and even with the numerous twists later on, it's still very easy to follow. You definitely don't need a degree in philosophy playing this game, much unlike other mystery visual novels like, say, Umineko. Nothing really gets super convoluted, and the game holds your hand throughout its duration. There's obviously can be a downside to some, especially hardcore mystery fans, but for people who just want to chill and take a story at face value, then this game would be perfect. Another downside to this would be the plot can be a bit predictable at times. The story follows a specific formula that you might be able to pick up on after a couple of chapters. Because of this, the game can lose a bit of its thrill, and it does make some segments drag on a bit. This is actually one of my glaring issues with the game's V3 ending aside. Sometimes you figure out the mystery way before the characters do, and having to sit through their arguments can be painful at times. So yes, the simple plot and formula is a bit of a double-edged sword. It can work in the game's favor if you don't really want to think all that much, but use more than 20 of your brain cells and things can feel a bit too slow. For the most part though, I think it does benefit the game. With a concept as crazy as that and aesthetics as goofy as that, a simple plot can hold things together nicely. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Danganronpa is not a traditional VN. Not even close. Just the simple fact that it has WASD movement already makes it debatable whether it's a visual novel or not. It's very interactive, and you can move the story forward at your own pace for the most part. Some parts don't get triggered unless you interact with certain things, and you can't access some of the story unless you explore the map and talk to the characters some more. It's a very long shot for most VNs where the story keeps moving forward at a steady pace with no breaks in between dialogue. What really sets Danganronpa apart from not only visual novels but any game as a matter of fact are its iconic class trials. Now obviously I can't show much footage of these because these are very spoiler heavy, so I'll just go over this quickly since it's good that you all experience this for yourselves anyway. Whenever a murder occurs, you first have to go through an investigation. You walk around the crime scene investigating every nook and cranny to gather clues, or as they're called in game, truth bullets. Once you're done, the trial will officially begin. In the class trial, you are challenged with a mix of logic puzzles and minigames. These vary and the types of minigames increase and change throughout the series, but the main staple of it all is the non-stop debate. In it, the entire class argues about the murder, each trying to get their own points and alibis across, and your job as the main character is to find the inconsistencies in all of their dialogue and rebuke that crap using your truth bullets. Or in Japanese, Danganronpa. Anyway, despite all this gameplay, surprisingly there's only one route to follow. I mean sure, there's that friendship stuff you do during free time, and during the trials and killing Harmony there are alternate scenes depending on what you shoot during the non-stop debate, but these are just extra dialogue and don't affect anything story-wise. Of course, for me, this isn't really a massive problem. I think the stories progress fine. The only really major issue I have is killing Harmony's ending, but like I said, I'm not going to go deep into plot points since that's irrelevant as of now, and I can just make a separate video about that if you guys like. The only thing I would have really enjoyed is if we added more of a fail condition. You see, there's really no punishment for failing the class trial. Yes, you do have HP, and yes, you do technically fail if that reaches 0, but you just pick back up immediately where you left off with no repercussion. Obviously, at its core, Danganronpa is still a visual novel, and it's probably pretty hard to put a fail condition in it, considering 1, it would be really annoying having to replay entire chapters, and 2, you could just load up a save and start back at the point before you failed. But you know, it would have been really nice if they added just a small extra scene when you fail, showing the culprit winning the killing game. With even just one extra CG, just a little something to make losing slightly more impactful. So now that you all are hopefully more familiarized with the games, I now just want to give more of my overall thoughts on them, and why I think everyone should pick them up. In my opinion, Danganronpa is one of the best in the whodunit mystery department. For a game where finding the culprit is the main priority, you'd think it would be a whodunit mystery, but in order to expose the culprit, the game dives into the method they used. A lot of these are really creative in my opinion, and some of these are set up masterfully, especially Goodbye Despair's Murders, which is for me, the best game in the series. Some are obviously weaker than others and are sometimes too over the top or ridiculous for my tastes, but most of them are really unique and original. It can be really fun figuring out the murder on your own, disregarding having to wait for the characters to catch up to you, and it's pretty satisfying feeling all the clues click in your brain. All these cases are completely solvable with the clues they give you, which to be fair is standard for the mystery genre, but it doesn't change the fact that figuring it out as you play through the trial is damn satisfying. The games also have a really colorful cast of characters, each with their own unique personality and traits. It's really fun just seeing them interact with each other and just reading through all the little quirky dialogue they have when they're together. Now of course, I don't necessarily enjoy all of them, and I do think some of them are quite stupid, but goddamn, some of the characters are just amazing. Naturally, this is all just personal preference, and you're free to like whichever character you want to like. That, in my opinion, is one of the game's strongest points. Your experience will be very different depending on your preference. Danganronpa is very character driven by nature, and your experience with the game will vary depending on how you feel about the characters. You can be very saddened by a specific character's death, or on the opposite end, you can be overjoyed by the fact that they're now gone. This has really made apparent if you look at some characters like Nagito from Goodbye Despair. One of my personal favorites, and a lot of others as well, but the opinion on him is pretty split 50-50. People either absolutely adore him or absolutely despise him, and how you experience Goodbye Despair can be greatly affected just by how you view this singular character. But without a shadow of a doubt, the main reason I recommend Danganronpa so heavily to everyone is that it's just a great gateway into visual novels. It was one of my first ones, and I'm sure it's a lot of people's first ones as well. If you want to get into the genre but you're feeling kind of iffy, Danganronpa is a great place to start. It perfectly blends an adventure game with visual novel, and it uses its gameplay mechanics to full effect, enhancing the story by a lot. Instead of jumping headfirst into a very traditional VN like Tsukihime and just start bashing your head into the walls of text, it's nice to be eased into the genre more. Danganronpa, I find, does a pretty damn good job at tricking you to reading for extended periods of time. When I first played Trigger Happy Havoc, I ended up playing for like 8 hours straight without even realizing it, so the game's 30-hour playtime was absolutely nothing for me. The very straightforward plot also works very much into the game's favor as an entry-level VN. You won't be familiar with a lot of the tropes if this is one of your first, and the stuff it pulls will more than likely take you by surprise. Not only that, but you'll be able to enjoy the story a lot more in general when it's simple. If you try picking up something like When They Cry as your entry point into the genre, Jesus Christ, good luck.
トラップ X による犯行の可能性気づかずに飲み込んで腹をぶちまけるような爆弾の詳細については
It's obviously not impossible to do that, but I feel those very lengthy and complicated stories would be better left for later on when you're more accustomed to the genre. It's also very easily accessible with the entire franchise being on Steam and officially translated, so you can pick it up with no problem. For those unaware, a lot of visual novels don't get a localization, or even put up on Steam if they do get one, meaning you'd have to rely on either fan translations, some translator app, or just sit there and pray that the localization comes. God damn, I just carried no Shoujo 3 getting translated. So yeah, from the innovative gameplay allowing people to ease themselves into the media, the straightforward plot letting people get comfortable and not think too much, and the ease of access for anyone around the world, Danganronpa is a very good game to pick up if you've been wanting to get into visual novels. Now I am well aware that the game is nowhere near perfect and it does have a lot of its own flaws, but for me those can be overlooked. There's a lot more good to the game than bad, and you can't deny it is still entertaining to play through despite all the shortcomings. Even though it's not one of my personal favorites, I still highly recommend it to everyone, including you the viewer. So I put all my hope into the fact that after watching this, you're able to check out the games for yourselves and experience them for what they are. I put all my hopes into people being more open-minded about VNs since it's one of my favorite forms of media. A lot of people have a hard time getting into them, and a lot of people just view Danganronpa from what they see on the outside. Maybe people just view it as that one game with cringe OCs and fan art, or just a game where kids kill each other with no substance. But no, that's wrong.